Welcome to the Breakneck Podcast. Myself, Ian Sweeney, and my co-host, Matt Pashensky. Say hey, Matt.
Hello.
And we're doing the usual thing. We're breaking down AI for businesses, decoding it, and super excited. Great guest today. Want to introduce you all to Sean McCreanor. Sean, how are you?
Good, thanks, Ian. Thanks for hosting. Excited to join the podcast and unpack some of the AI, all things AI. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so are we. You've got some fun stuff going on. So you and I know each other for quite a while. So Sean, you're the CEO of Assignar. So we haven't actually said that. You've got a deep, rich history in terms of construction. Maybe give us a little bit about your history and Assignar's history.
Yeah, no, sure thing. Yeah, so Assign is a SaaS platform. We've been around for about 11 years now, designed for heavy civil and infrastructure type contractors. So we help them with scheduling, planning, execution of the work that they win, and collecting field data and making insights out of that. And we're actually about to launch a new product that I'm sure we're gonna dive into. My background, actually, I'm 47 years old. I started my career in tech, a little bit of a dinosaur back in the .com days. Ended up building and exiting a company in the mid 2000s, and it was in the cybersecurity space. It wasn't called that back then, but that's kind of what it was. And I was kind of at a little bit of a loose end, and I wasn't sure, what was next. For me, I was kind of burnt out a little bit. The cloud was just fairly nascent. Technology was starting to really shift. A friend of mine convinced me that I should do something different and we should start a construction business together, which was not something I had expertise in at the time. But the kind of the thesis was there was all this infrastructure spend back in Australia, where I'm originally from, and we should go build a business around that. So that's what we did in 2007. We launched a contracting business. My business partner, he's from industry, so he's the construction expert. But the idea was, with his construction expertise, me being kind of a business guy with a technology background, we could build, a good platform and build a business out. So that's what we did. So from 2007 through till 14, I was in a construction business, literally standing up everything from the back office, learning everything that there was to know as fast as I could. To give you a sense of that business, it does roads, rail, infrastructure type work, very similar to the customer that we sell Assignar, our product, to. So I learned everything. I learned not just finance, but I learned how to bid a project, how to go project manage some of the smaller ones. We've got about 300 employees in that business and about 100 pieces of heavy equipment. Michael still runs the business from a day-to-day perspective. I'm not involved in it anymore. But when I was there, I learned how to operate all of our equipment. I learned how to do the basics on the job site. And I kind of saw firsthand, being in the trenches, just some of the challenges that you had, both logistically as a business owner, to plan and execute the work that you had won. But then, being out in the field, you've got these crews that are out there, 10, 12 hours a day. You've got to get data in from the field, one, so that they can get paid, but two, so that you can get paid as a contractor. These are thin margin businesses. So it's really important to get that data collection piece right from the field so that you can then ultimately pay and get paid. So that's kind of my background. In about 2014, we realized that, digitization was starting to happen out in the field. Workers had smartphones now. They had Androids, they had iOS devices. And so I ran a search. I was looking for something to help run the back office or the operations of our business. Shame on me, being an old tech guy. I'd put technology everywhere in my business, but not in the operational part. And so I ran a search and I couldn't really find anything that would suit us at the time. And so I said to my business partner, I think I can build us something. So that's really where the genesis of Assignar came from. We built a little product that we put in our business. I showed it to a handful of contractors that ultimately became customers, people that I knew from industry. And they said, yeah, this thing looks great. We've got the problem in our business. And so that was really it. So by mid 2014, I came out of the day-to-day of my construction business and had met my co-founder, Marco. And we essentially, went into a room and started building. And we hired a handful of engineers, and it took us about I mean, it's crazy now at the speed you can build with AI. It took us about a year and a half to build our first product, or at least get it to like MVP. Um, yeah, so by 2016, we kind of were ready to launch, I guess, meaning I hired a couple of sales reps, a customer success manager, and tried to figure out how the hell to sell software to construction contractors, as well as make sure we were solving the problem
Yeah.
for them.
And not an easy industry to sell technology into, right? I
No,
mean,
it's not. I mean, there's an old study that McKinsey did that's sort of, folklore now. Around in 2017, they released a report talking about digitization of various industries. And construction was smack bang second from the bottom. I think only beaten by mining and hunting. I think it was. It's kind of nuts. So, and right across. So, construction contractors, it's changed a lot since then. I would say technology is being adopted a little more widely, but back then they didn't know what the cloud was. This was in 2015, 2016. We had to explain to them there are no servers. We're not going to ship you a CD once a quarter to update your software. But there's still resistance because they're low margin businesses. These are typically 5 to 8% EBITDA businesses, and there's a change management process that they need to go on. So when you're moving from largely manual processes, spreadsheets, whiteboards, to get that mental model that you have translated into software is very different. As we all know, you can take your mental model and map it into a spreadsheet. It's ultimately configurable, but to do that in software requires generally some change or some process change. And so that's where we spend most of our time with customers, even to this day, is not just working on, here's what the product does, but, here's kind of part of the journey that you have to go on as you roll it out. And we try to work really closely with them on that change management process.
so fast forward today, somewhere along the line, you moved to the US. The business has been doing great, and then two letters float into focus, AI, and we're all looking around going, crap, what does this mean for us? But you've really embraced it. You've got this new feature. Give us a little bit of the kind of the run up to
Yeah.
deciding to build this product, how you ended up doing it, what, basically how you got here, and then tell us a little bit more about the actual feature.
Yeah, we're launching a new product. I think you guys are the first to get ahead of it as well. So it'll be launching on September 3. But traditionally Silicon Valley will tell you that when you get to like 8 figures of ARR, you should be a multi-product company. And we weren't going into the back end of last year. So I pulled together a team, my product team and some of my executives, and we did like this, what do we want to do in 2025? It was strategic planning, but really around the product. One of our investors, Akshay from Tola Capital, just kind of challenged the way we were thinking about building and launching a new product. And he essentially said to Marco and I, my co-founder, what you guys should do is not think of the constraints that you have with your existing product and platform, but think about building something brand new as if you were starting a new company tomorrow and you were going to go from 0 to 1. Inevitably, whatever you build is going to touch your existing product because there's a lot of surface area there, but don't think about it being an extension or a module or a feature of the existing platform. So that was one thing that kind of resonated with us. Coupled with that, like the speed at which you can build with AI and leverage AI, the timing was quite good from that perspective. And his encouragement was, you and Marco, just the two of you, the two founders of the business, go and build at least the MVP and go test it, with customers and see if there's demand. Because his thesis, which I think was right, we would know instinctively what the problem is that customers want solved next. And we knew that because we've got 10 years of history, we've got feature requests and feedback. The problem was, we had maybe it was on Horizon 2 or Horizon 3 for us to build, but because when you've got a platform and you've got, tens of thousands of users using it each day, to pull engineering resource pre-AI and build a new product requires a heavy lift. So essentially that's what we did. We kind of knew what the product should look like. So Marco and I went heads down. I got technical again, not super technical. Marco's the real engineer in the room, but Yeah, we built a little prototype with 3 months of work using AI, using, I guess, what a lot of people are doing now, prompting Cursor to try and build, doing some prototyping in the Lovables, etc. But we stood up a pretty basic MVP, and I surveyed about 100 customers, and I said to them, here's what we're building. Can I show it to you? If it solves problems, one, would it be valuable to you? Two, would you be interested in buying it? And three, what would you pay for it? And a bunch of other product type questions as well. But I was kind of blown away by the feedback. So a third of them came back and said, yes, we would buy it. We would buy it right now and we'd pay you 2 times what we're paying for your existing product. Yeah. So I'm like, wow, this is okay. That's not a bad sample size. The second third said pretty much the same thing, but they want 3 to 6 months to test, the product and see whether it's there, but no friction around pricing or, the value that we were trying to showcase. And the third, I guess, said we'd love to see it before we could commit to anything. But it was enough of a proof point for me to say, all right, let's go all in and try and build this product out. So we pulled a couple of engineers in. This was by probably the end of Q1, maybe early Q2 of this year, and really decided that like roadmaps at the pace that you can build at today, the roadmap doesn't really matter. We're not going to plan in 2 or 3 week sprints. We're not going to talk about what's coming in Q3 or Q4. Let's just like swarm as a crew and like try and build this thing as fast as we can. And we've continued to get customer feedback. So the product that we're launching with, it's much more than an MVP. It's pretty well baked out now. We've got customers using us and giving us feedback. We're shipping faster than we've ever shipped before, which is all due to sort of agentic AI coding more than just prompting Cursor. And the feedback's been great. So we're excited to launch that. And we'll be launching with 4 kind of key modules in the product. It's a financial product. We call it Pay, really around contractors getting paid and paying their workers as fast as they possibly can, and also helping them manage job costing, but all with AI through the entire product. So it's been a pretty awesome journey. I think it started with, my investor Akshay, like really challenging us on what the product and the problem is. The timing is now. Build from 0 to 1, leverage AI, and then go see. And if it's not resonating with the customer, you can build so much more quickly now that you can just move on to whatever the next product idea might be. So we've been able to kind of build and ship that really, really fast, and super excited to launch it, obviously, on September 3rd.
Well, congrats, first of all. There's something about, and I think Pact has this as well in Matt's business. There's a sweet spot here where, you have an existing business, which means you have domain knowledge, which means you have access to the market. And then the relative importance of the product, you didn't say it this way, Sean, but it's relatively speaking, in a new business, not nearly as important as it was, because doesn't require the same level of resources. It's much more flexible and agile in terms of the direction. So even roadmap isn't that important. But give us a sense of the timing from the conversation with Akshay and the strategic planning to the realization, okay, we're going to do this to where we are today. What kind of time period were you having that conversation?
I think from like the initial catalyst, that conversation, to getting, some sort of MVP. I mean, it's engineered well, even the MVP. It wasn't just a lovable prototype. It definitely wasn't vibe coded, but was probably about 3 months. And that was just the two of us. That was just Marco and I.
Sean, you're hitting Ian's particular thesis on the head, which is it takes 90 days.
Yeah.
Which I believe is three months if you can only.
Yeah, totally. And I think what we were able to showcase as well, we could have had something in front of them much more quickly than that. But what I wanted to do was, with the first kind of prototype, was show them a really well thought out, fully baked product. And you're able to do that even if it's not everywhere's totally functional. So for us, that means they always ask us, how do we integrate into a third party system? So rather than telling them, it's possible with a partner, or we've got APIs available that you can hook into, let's build out an integration screen and show them the workflow, what that could look like. Now, it wasn't functional from day one, but it just eliminates that question, as you're kind of showcasing and getting feedback from customers. And if you think about how you used to build product, you would do it the total opposite way. You would go survey all your customers. You'd put a vision and a mission statement for the product together. You'd build out a 12-month roadmap. You'd break it down into sequences, and then you'd maybe get into design and you'd show customers some static Figma designs, and then you'd riff, and you'd take, a lot longer than what we took. So we kind of, because of the domain knowledge and because of all the customer feedback we'd had for years, we kind of instinctively were able to build a pretty rich early prototype to show customers, and that just kept the motivation to keep building and keep developing the idea.
One thing I want to get from you is you have this great contrast between that first year and a half in 2014 of building the MVP, and now maybe not exactly the same kind of functionality in 90 days, but a 90-day plan to have essentially the same type of process. You're going to put something in front of customers they can react to that's going to give you enough confidence to go build, obviously a much more robust system in the long run. You did it in a very particular way, which is it was the same group. You and Marco in 2014, you and Marco in 2025. What did it feel like when integrating AI? I think the thing I'm trying to get at is when you go and tell an engineering team, hey, go build a product like our product that has AI, what they do is and I see this a lot of pitches and VCs, you watch what people are pitching VCs, and it's like, well, we take the existing product, we put a little AI in here, and now it's an AI product. And what it sounds like you did was something more, you start from scratch. And how did that affect the way AI influenced your decisions? Because, you have this 2014 pure SaaS era. Now you have 2025 pure AI. Contrast those two.
Yeah. So back when we were building to launch in 2014, we had to be really, really thoughtful about the features that we had to build because it was so expensive and time consuming to build. So that's why it took us the time that it did to kind of get it out there. And of course, the minute you sign the first customer, whatever you think is MVP gets thrown out the window, and you've now got 50, 100 feature requests that you got to scramble and build really fast. And I think we did that well in 2014, but it was a lot of long days, nights, and weekends to kind of ship as quickly as we possibly could, because otherwise customers aren't happy and it doesn't serve their need anymore. And now you're having a very different conversation with them. I think in 2025, being able to build at the pace that you can, again, nothing changes. You sign up the first customer, MVP gets thrown out the window, and now you've got 100 feature requests. But with agents being able to take feature requests and essentially build them for you and get a PR into GitHub in minutes, or hours at the maximum, you can build really, really quickly. You can iterate, you can ship it into their environment, and they can play with it, test it, and give you feedback. So that's been a game changer for us. I think if I was to try and build this product that we're launching back in 2014, I think it would take 18 months to 2 years to build what we've built in maybe 6 months or less. And I think we'd need 12 to 15 people on the team, engineers, product, UX, and all the other voices that want to contribute.
And I want to just highlight those numbers because I'm building like a little scatter plot in my head. It's like how much faster, how much cheaper. And so what you're describing, maybe 3-4 people in 6 months versus your estimation of 15 people in 2 years. That's 4x faster. And Ian, please help me with the math. With a quarter.
Dude, you're the physicist. Don't be asking me.
I had COVID, and for everyone, a little personal note. I had COVID all weekend. Watch out for COVID.
Yeah.
So I simply do not trust any mental faculty anymore. I'm surprised I'm on the call. That's 16x cheaper, at least.
Yeah. It's orders of magnitude. And I think
for a company that you're enormous compared to where you were in 2014.
Yeah, no, totally. And we could have put resource behind it and engineered it, the kind of the old way. But again, it's a prioritization thing because you've got this core platform. I can't just double the size of my engineering team overnight. So you start to make trade-offs on like, okay, do we pause creating new surface area in the existing product to pull resources in to build the new thing? Well, you don't need to think about it like that anymore. And AI truly unlocks that. I think the second part that's kind of really important is just that launch. If you're going to build a new product, I have so much confidence that when we open the floodgates to customers and they're bombing us with feature requests, feedback, bugs, and all the usual things, that we can ship 10 times faster, probably even 20 times faster. So I can deliver value. Whereas launching back in 2014, there was risk that we didn't do it the right way. And now we've got to go refactor something that we just built to serve the workflow. You can afford to be a little more experimental. You can afford to take feature requests and ship them and build them because it's just, the pace and velocity, is orders of magnitude different to what it
Yeah,
used to be.
that's a theme we've seen. We had another CEO, Michael Core, on a few weeks back, and he re-architected his whole platform, which was generally, like, you think about 10 years ago, everyone said, don't do that. Never wholesale re-architect your platform. And in a very similar situation here. And in both cases, it worked out very well. And so there's a lot of the kind of the underlying minimalistic product ethos, which is you only do things incrementally, you only do things at the margins, you only do things when they're very well justified by demand. And now it's flipped. It's like, no, just go out and use your network and use your existing understanding, but your ambition should actually be far larger.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. You've also got a customer base that trusts you as well. And so you've got some defensibility in that when you're bringing a new product to market. And generally, they'll be pretty receptive. I mean, I surveyed a really small segment of our customer base and got, immediate feedback from them. But it's just, it's been a total game changer, for us, and I'm sure for others that are building. But what you hit on an interesting point, Matt, as well. So we've got our core product. We call it operations. And for years, I wouldn't say we'd been neglecting it, but we hadn't modernized it like most, like you should, because to your point, you're not encouraged to invest time in refactoring things unless they really move the needle for you. Well, in concert with building the new product, when we started to see what was possible with AI, we said, okay, to our engineering team and operations, we're going to invest time in refactoring and modernizing the platform as well. And it's kind of crazy how fast you can have these agents work, as co-pilots with your engineering teams to take, a platform that's, in some areas it's 10 years old, in other parts it's only 4 or 5, and refactor and modernize the stack so that you can get those efficiency gains as you continue to build on that in the future. And that was really important to us. We wanted to make sure that we weren't leaving the existing product behind, but it wasn't the great developer experience. So we had to modernize it. And so that's been kind of an interesting journey as well. And so now when you modernize, engineers can move more quickly. They can be closer to the customer. You can ship features much faster. And of course, you can layer in some of those sort of agentic workflows that maybe you'd wanted to put into the product, but you couldn't because the tech stack was holding you back a little bit.
Very interesting that you highlight the developer experience as part of the decision-making around the refactors. People talk about refactors as performance, or it's not extensible. But what you brought up was one of the first things that you said is the developer experience is no longer sufficient for us to take this 16x-ish improvement, or maybe 20x, like you said, which is very repeatable. This is something we've heard over and over again. Well, now if you can integrate 20x the features, let's say, maybe. Well, now all of your friction that used to be, oh, that's annoying, but we'll just kind of deal with it because every time we integrate a feature, it took 2 months to build and a week to integrate. Well, now it takes 3 days to build and a week to integrate still. And so you need to go and think about developer experience internally as a limiting factor for your own business, to the point where you should refactor your whole company to take advantage of the fact that you could have Cursor developing features 20x faster.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think it's important, for a couple of reasons. Like the developer experience is one. Engineers want to work on the latest and greatest, and oftentimes they don't get to because they're inheriting a code base that's been around for a while. Maybe to use a car analogy, and they don't want to work on the 88 Ford. They want to work on something a little more modern. So giving them a great experience is important. But I think you can couple that with getting them closer to the customer as well, because now they're not planning a feature that they might get to in Q4. If it's a really quick win, we can throw it over the fence to a co-pilot. It can ship the feature, I can review the PR, and I can push it to production more quickly. So engineers are actually doing what I think they're the best at, which is problem solving and getting close to the customer. And that's where you want them. You want them, getting that feedback, because they'll think laterally, they'll solve the problem in maybe a different way that a product manager or designer might think about solving it. And now with the speed that you can do it, you can build, ship, and if it doesn't work, well, throw it out. We'll just do another one. It's only taken us a day or two to get it out the door. So
Yeah, you
we
see
just sort of
sorry to cut
no,
across. I was just gonna say, you see a lot less of the death march. The great. Okay, we're doing this for another 6 months to get to this point to refactor, and then we can do the new feature. Like, no, here we are chunking through stuff, and just you're seeing that progress, which is great.
and what if we get to the end of the quarter, or we get to the end of the sprint and we've missed 2 or 3 key things? Customers won't adopt it. Now we're in this lag period where we've got to go build the features in the next sprint. And what did we trade off to get that done so that customers are ultimately happy? So it's as much about, speed and velocity as it is about delighting the customer with the things you can build at speed and pace. But it's I wouldn't say it's been like easy to make that shift internally. I think there's a big cultural shift that you have to kind of be aware of with your engineering teams. You do have engineers that just love writing code. That's all they live, sleep, and breathe. Well, now we're kind of asking them to just pull down the PRs and review the code, make sure AI hasn't done anything stupid, make sure it's got all the right structure, the way it's built, the feature set, etc. Test it, do a little bit of QA, and we've got agents doing some of that stuff already as well. Now you can ship the feature much more quickly. So that's a mindset shift. That's a cultural shift where you're telling engineers you're going to orchestrate over agents as opposed to writing code. And that, to me, I think is where we're still early days in software, but this is the way I believe. I've got full conviction. This is the way we're going to build software in the future from here on out.
The way we like to think about it is it's just a theory of constraints. Where's your actual constraint? And when it took so many seconds to write so many lines of code, that was the constraint. And so everything was organized around giving people the most time to code, the most time to push the buttons. And that simply is not a constraint anymore. And so everybody's job is moving elsewhere in the organization, like you said, QA, architecture, but more importantly, what we would used to call product management is now everybody's job. And I think a bigger part of running a company is making sure it's clear what, who owns what customers want what.
What about the actual customer side? We've been hyping up how great it is internally in the business, and we're all kind of somewhat aware of it. And we're educating here a little bit. But as you flipped around and you head out to market and you're talking to customers, and you're probably saying, blah, 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 AI, blah, 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 right? So AI is in the conversation. Do they care? Was it helpful that this was an AI enabled thing? How does that fit into kind of the go-to-market positioning and presentation of this new product?
Yeah, that's a really good one. So maybe 2 things that are kind of interesting. So remember that McKinsey report 2017.
This is AI Ian. The chat with Sean McCreanor, CEO of Assignar, was too good to edit down, so he's decided to split it. Check out part 2 for the rest of the chat.